All right, and we're live, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Investing Across Border Show. We have a very, very special guest, Ariana from David Hurston and Partners. And she's also Canadian, I just found out. So that's exciting because if you follow us in our Facebook group, Canadians in the US, a lot of people are Canadian. So it's always nice. And a lot of our clients are Canadian. So, Ariana, thank you for joining us. Shema might join us in a little bit, but she's having some technical difficulties. But if she joins, we'll bring her on as well. But Ariana, we'd love to introduce yourself and we welcome you. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to being here. I'm an immigration attorney, as you said, with David Hurston and Partners out in California. I myself was born and raised in Maine, and that's where I live now. So I do this remote kind of work every day. My dad's from Montreal. So as you said, I'm a dual citizen of the US and Canada. And I have just more broadly an immigrant family. So I feel like that's something that helps me in my career because I do kind of get it, the rest of the concerns that you have when you're going through this process with your family.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that it is something that affects everything in some kind of ripple effect. So I like being able to talk with my clients about that whole perspective. In addition to E2s, I'll just mention I sometimes work on national interest waivers, visas for people who have extraordinary abilities. So I really love this type of immigration where people like E2 investors and other individuals can bring something and contribute to the country and get here on some kind of lawful status in exchange. So
Yeah.
thanks for having me. Looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as people know, you we just have, it's a conversation. Really, we like to bring a lot of guests that are going to bring value and people that are in the field so that if people are interested in investing or immigrating to the US, we try to be a good resource for them. So that's why we do this.
Mhm.
We're live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So thank you everybody for watching. So the first question, we're gonna just get right to it. What are some special considerations when it comes to E2 applications?
Yeah. So it's a great question, and I'm sure that's people's first thought when you're kind of considering if this would be a good process for you to start. I think that my biggest answer and what is most important for people to understand and internalize is that the really important thing here is to have some kind of strategy before you start. And so I think it's less about having a plan that is like a certain specific type of business or any other specific considerations that everyone must have. I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that's necessary. But what is necessary is knowing what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to meet these requirements and how you're going to make this process work for you kind of personally and in general as well before you start doing things like investing your money or for applying for the status with immigration. So kind of taking the time and mapping it out before you take any concrete steps is so important and it will pay off greatly in the end.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm gonna let Shema in. There we go. Hi, Shema. Thank you for being here, as always.
Hi guys.
Hi.
So yeah, I totally agree. I think that's something that people a lot of times don't even think about when they're taught when they're
Mhm.
thinking about investing, where they're just thinking about, oh my God, how am I going to do the business? How am I going to do what type
Mhm.
of investment? But a lot of the other things that you just mentioned are super important. So I really appreciate that you bring that up. So as an immigration lawyer, what is the one thing that you want people to understand about immigrating to the US?
So kind of on a related note, and I don't mean this to be like scary or pessimistic at all, but the US immigration system really is no joke. It's extremely complicated. It is far more complicated than just filling out papers, which is what a lot of people kind of think about. And the consequences are really, really serious. So, the good news is if you navigate it the right way, then of course it can give you all these life changing benefits for you and your family. But the flip side of that is that if you make a mistake along the way, that can be life altering at the very least. And it can really have serious consequences, not only for you, but for, if you have young children that have accompanied you to the US and something goes wrong, that's something that they'll be dealing with throughout their adult lives as well. So I'll relate it back to what we were talking about with having a really strong game plan before you start. You need to know what it is you're going to be doing before you are making moves that are going to follow you for the rest of your life the way that they do in our immigration system.
Yeah. Wow. No, it sounds like you definitely want to have everything taken care of right away, and not and work with people that actually know the law and can really help you. I mean, obviously with our clients, we start with our consult. So if anybody wants to schedule a consult, Raymond, please feel free to put that in the chat. And that's how we were able to really understand and personalize the plan, so that then we can talk to Ariana and all of our partners, for example, so that you have the everything in place and we guide you in the right direction. So thank you for mentioning that. Shoma, did you want to ask something?
No, since I joined a little bit late, I'm still getting into the groove of things,
Okay.
so I will ask something later.
Okay, great. So Ariana, we talked a little bit about, the considerations when it comes to an E2 visa and some of the things that are important to consider when people are immigrating to the US. Is there something else that you would like to add about the whole process? Maybe some, obviously don't mention client names, but things that maybe come up that you get to see on a day-to-day basis when it comes to E2 applications? Nothing specific, but just like in general.
Sure, yeah. I think that what I would want to know if I were starting a process like this, or even like considering it in any way, even if it's kind of seems like a long way off, is that you really can tailor this to what you want to do. So on one hand, like I think you get people who are like have had maybe a career in something that they're leaving behind and they want something new and they have no idea what they want. Something really valuable that a team like yours can help with is to come up with and find a business that is going to work really well for the E2 process. And maybe it's something that you would never have thought about on your own, but it's just kind of like this obvious structure that lends itself really well to this process. I think that could take a lot of weight off your shoulders if you're not sure what you want to be doing, but you are open to other people's suggestions.
Mhm.
And then on the other hand, like if you are someone that is considering this, but you do have some kind of interest or a career that you can start in the States, you can also make this process work for you and whatever it is that you want to do specifically. So I've seen kind of a mix. I've seen people who've said, "Oh, I had no idea how I could possibly come up with a business." Maybe like they've never been a business owner and the whole thing is very intimidating, or which I totally understand, or something like that. And your team has been able to say, "Well, here's an example of something that a lot of people pick up easily and works for this process," and people have been thrilled for that. And then I've seen clients who just come with these really specific ideas that they already know they wanted to do or they've been doing it before in another place. And we can absolutely make that work for them. And now they have a second location of their international, restaurant chain or whatever it is, and they're still doing exactly what they've been doing. So I think no matter where you land in terms of like the spectrum of knowing what you want to be doing for your business, there's no right or wrong place to be on that spectrum. You can make it work.
Right. I think that's key because a lot of times you're overwhelmed into finding something new or something like that. And I mean, there's a lot of franchises that could potentially expand the business that you currently have in Canada, or, if you're anywhere else, of course, that
Mm-hmm.
qualifies as well. But I think figuring out how to make it work. And that's why, working
Mm-hmm.
with us, with Ariana, you're able to do that, and you don't have to start a new career per se. If you want to, then I mean, you're all for it. That's great. But there's a lot of different options for people out there that maybe they don't know about, and it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely something that that we should definitely keep in mind. Somebody said, I love the 360 consulting your team provides individuals and families exploring options for immigration. And that's exactly right. I mean, when you work with us, you work with people who have done that. Like Ariana is a perfect example, and David Herson and Partners team, where when you come to us, we get everything organized and we help you find the right business for you, for your particular situation. It's all personalized. And then we work with other teams as well so that we're not doing everything. We're connecting you to the right people and guiding you in the process. We don't just drop you off and say, okay, you're done. We follow up, we make sure that everything is working and guiding you along the way. So thank you for that. And we do have some questions. If anybody's watching live, whether you're on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Facebook, just let us know you're here and you can ask any questions. Somebody asked, is there any advantage for Canadians? And I'm thinking this refers to maybe immigration or investing in immigrating. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I'm not sure exactly what they're referring to, but we'll try to answer as
Yeah,
best.
so sure. So it wouldn't be kind of like maybe they're thinking about how it's easier to kind of go between the States and Canada. You don't need the visas, systems that other countries have. I wouldn't say that there's any parallel there with this process. But whenever you're talking about immigration, there are so many practical things that will affect your process as well. So certainly the close proximity of Canada, things like flexible travel will make it easier. There are, as just mentioned, two different ways to get the E2 status, one being that you can do it through the consulate in Toronto, and the other one being that you can change whatever your status is if you're already in the US. So maybe legally, I would say no kind of important differences for Canadians. But when you are talking about a much shorter distance to be traveling, it kind of opens up your options a little bit more for deciding how to go about this process, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's exactly. And you're close. I mean, you can
Right,
drive. So I think that
right.
also a lot of people, when they're starting the process, they just want to, just check out the area. You don't need to, book a
Mm-hmm,
flight necessarily.
mm-hmm,
Actually, some of our clients, were just in Orlando and they're driving all the way up to to Canada, believe it or not. So even in Florida, so from Florida even to Canada. So it really just depends on how you feel but that's definitely an advantage that a lot
mm-hmm,
of people don't have from other countries as well.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's great. And just as a reminder, we do have guests coming every single week in the month of February. So we're always live at 12:30 in all of our channels. So make sure that you catch us up there. And Ariana, is there something else that you wanted to share about the E2 process or applications or anything else that is important for people to know?
I think it may be a broken record at this point, but something that I always want to mention, no matter if it's an E2 process or something else, is that I think people really get caught up in what they've heard their friends or family or other people talking about as being either successful or unsuccessful experiences. I don't want to run through like the requirements for the E2 visa, but I can say that some of them refer to the amount of money that you're investing. There are other requirements that have to do with your role in your company and the company itself. And so the requirements are all encompassing for the whole business process and investment process. And it's not that they're flexible requirements, but there are a lot of different ways that you can meet them.
Mm.
So I guess if you feel like you know a lot about the E2 process from other people in your life, I would say you still might not know it all. You don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
And it's just worth consulting about your specific goals to be able to figure out what the possibilities are. So keep an
Yeah.
open mind about what you think you understand and maybe some nuance that you just have not heard yet or maybe doesn't apply to you.
Yeah. I love that because whenever we get on consults, we always get people who say, "Oh yeah, my friend invested in this franchise, and
Mm-hmm.
for them it worked, so I want to do the same thing." And they don't realize that
Mm-hmm.
people people, maybe for them it worked, and maybe it was a different time because it wasn't. I mean, it's only 2020,
Mm-hmm.
2023. So there's a lot of people who have that expectation that if this worked, this specific thing worked for some people, then it must work for me, and that's not always the
Right.
case. So I love that you bring that up. It's not to say that you can't do your research. We encourage you to do your research and stuff. So it's important to keep that in mind. Shama, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, something really quick, because a lot of people sometimes, when we talk to them about the immigration process, for example, if they start working with us, they sometimes ask what would the synergy look like between, for example, a team like ours and then you guys.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it's pretty outlined, right? So if you guys don't know already, but we do have a three-phase program that starts with identifying the business, and then we move to phase two, where there is the business plan set up, and then phase three is where people like Ariana intervene in order to help with visa application preparations and everything it entails. I wanted to ask you, what do you think the advantages are for people um, that presents the synergy that we both have?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think someone had said something like this in the chat just a few minutes ago. It's really kind of a unique ability to connect with the different pieces of this process in a way that you're still getting someone who focuses on each distinct step, which is really important because that's how you become an expert in something, right? You don't try and do it all, you try and do your piece, but then still be able to work with the whole group so that you're all on the same page and you're all aware of the progress and all of that. I think, first of all, it makes the process feel a lot more manageable if you have any kind of like stress or anxiety about it, which like who wouldn't during a process like this? Um, but it also is just, you have more eyes looking at everything, right? You're getting two brains on every major piece of this process. If there's something that needs to be creatively addressed, like there's no better way to do that than with a couple of different people who come from the different perspectives but all have the same goal. A lot of the synergy type questions will depend on the individual you're working with, right? I know certainly attorneys have different styles, but I can say, like, for me personally, I'm very hands-on with my clients. I like to get you on the phone. I like to be responsive to all of your emails in kind of a casual and ongoing way. If there are little questions, and being available. And it is nice to have people on the email chain where someone is always like kind of present and able to move the case forward.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point, because sometimes in consults, uh, people would tell us, do you do this particular part of the process? Do you do this particular
Mm,
part? And then Lauren would intervene and said, like, we are supervising the process. We are experts in how it goes. Yeah, but there are certain pieces that we would rather have people who are more, who have a lot more expertise and who are a lot more hands-on than we are, and we are
mhm,
kind of bringing them the best there is for each one of those steps of the process. So yeah,
mhm.
that's
Yeah.
definitely something that is worth mentioning.
I think I get the temptation, I really do, to want to have one person who does it all. But I think that if you think about it, in whatever it is that each of us does, you can kind of understand why you want someone who does a
Yeah.
smaller slice of the process and does it more, right?
Well,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely impacts efficiency. It impacts the quality of it as well, the success
Oh
of
yeah.
it, and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And based on that, it's actually a good segue. Somebody else asked, can you give examples of how a requirement is in one way but can be in another? Well, most legal clauses are subject to interpretation, right? And
Mhm,
that specific advice really depends on the situation. So um,
mhm,
that's why we personalize everybody's path, because no one path is going to be identical and the same for
mhm,
everyone. So that's exactly what we're talking about. That by you working with people like us, you can really get the best of both worlds, because we're going to advise you on the right franchise or the right business that you're going to love, that you're going to really do and bring to the US. And then people like Ariana are going to do the specifics of the E2 application. And we have somebody who actually, that's all she does is write business plans. That's her life. That's all she does. So by working with people like us, you're really getting the best of both worlds. And it's hard to say, how one requirement is written one way and can be in another, because that's just law. So I don't know, Ariana, if you want to expand on that. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to give the last word to you as well at the end of this. So go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I think maybe a quick example that would kind of address what this person is thinking, I hope, is the requirement that the investment be a substantial investment. Because not so much that it would be read one way or another, but whether an investment is substantial or not depends on what the business is and how your amount that you're able to put in kind of compares to what the business needs and what it's doing and who else is invested, or all of that. So that's one brief example of how that requirement will be met by one person and then also be met by another person, even if the amounts are very different and the business models are very different, and all of that. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's something that addresses that concern of, like, when we are looking at these requirements and how to meet them, we're looking only at what you're doing and not what worked for someone else.
Yeah, definitely. And they're asking, well, can you give some specific examples on what you did? Yeah, I mean, we can tell you kind of like our process. We'll love to share. So we go through these three-phase program, and when somebody comes to us and they say, okay, I wanna move to the US, I want to or start a business in the US, maybe get a visa, but not necessarily move. But there's a lot of benefits in having a visa as well. We go through these three phases. Phase one is picking the right business. And a lot of times we work with franchises because they check a lot of the boxes, and it's just an easy way to get a business started in the US. But other times we work with people who want to move their existing business, who want to start a new business, who want to buy a business in the US that is not necessarily a franchise. So that's the first step. Understanding what is going to be the business and what are you going to be doing here. Then the next step is, once we have the business, we write the business plan, and we do all of the other little things like opening up a bank account and um, finding a way, an office space for you, like all of those little things that are important that you need to do. We advise you on all of these things that are important. And then phase three is people like Ariana, who we connect with so that we can file the visa petition, because at this point everything has been done, and we just have to go over the application, go over the business plan, and then we move forward. So all of that process, and those are specific examples. I love to tell you, we use this franchise or that franchise, but there's thousands, thousands of
Mhm.
ways to use a business that will qualify for an E2 visa. And
Mhm.
if you're asking, can use money? Yeah, obviously you need to invest money into a business so that it would qualify. So we only have a few minutes left. Ariana, do you want to say any last words or continue on the conversation, um, that we based on this last question that we had, so we can wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess I would just say that, especially this E2 service that is available to people like right off the bat and just at the beginning of thinking about maybe possibly someday doing this, it's kind of maybe not totally unique, but it's really special because there are a lot of different immigration processes that you can't have this kind of bird's eye strategic planning right off the bat. And it's really nice for me as an attorney to kind of step in at that stage three where all of the decisions have been made right and the way that I would have wanted to make them. And things are kind of all teed up so that it's going to be really clear and straightforward to show all of these requirements being met. And I mentioned I'm in a family that has people in many different countries, and what I would say to any one of my own family members or loved ones is to start early with a process like this and with a service like this, and getting expert help really is not for just difficult or complicated cases. It really is for everyone. There's no reason to struggle through a process and potentially have something go wrong when you can instead just meet with someone one-on-one, explain
Yeah.
all of your goals, all of your maybe like fears or obstacles that you think are going to impact your process, and get someone who knows your whole story and can kind of diagnose what needs to happen and figure it out for you. It's a great option for people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ariana. If anybody wants to get started, our consult is, if you want to schedule a consult, is investingacrossborders.net/consult. And thank you so much for joining us, Ariana. This has been great. It's kind of like a general overview of the strategy for a successful E2 application, and that's exactly what we want. We want a successful E2 application for everybody. So we're here to help. We're here to guide you. And next week we have another amazing guest. Actually, we have 3 weeks of just real estate experts, but I'm not going to give it away of who it is because they're pretty amazing. But you got to be here to find out at 12:30 on Thursdays. For the rest of the month of February, we have real estate experts. But just like Ariana, who's an investing and immigration expert, she's here as well. So we try to cater to everybody depending on what is your interest. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.